Hello, everybody, and happy Monday to you. Hopefully, your Father's Day was really good. You made some good memories with some good people, kept some smiles on your face, and enjoyed the weather, as well as getting some barbecue in. And if you were grieving, hopefully, you were around people that could lift you up and speak life into you and walk with you through those hard times. Now, today's episode, I have an amazing guest for you guys. Now, before we get started, do me a favor. If this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor. Head over to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And if you know anyone who can benefit from the conversations that we have, please share this with them. Now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to remind you that this is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, help me welcome my next guest, Dr. How you doing today?
I am awesome. Happy marvelous Monday. It's another day on this earth, and I am rejoicing
Awesome.
and glad.
I love it. I love it. Now, before we get started, tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
I'm Dr. ShaNita Nolan, and I live in Northern Virginia, right outside of the nation's capital. I am on a mission to transform the world one person at a time, and I am referred to, my brother lovingly calls me a specter, a speaker, a coach, a teacher, and trainer. I'm also an author of the book, Indestructible Journey from Pain to Promise. I'm a mental health and maternal health advocate and the founder of the Widow's Lounge podcast, amongst many things.
You wear many, many hats, and always is always impressive to meet someone like yourself to come on here and share your story and everything. Man, wow, I thought I wore many hats, but woo, I told you the first time, I was like, I feel like I ain't doing my job. I got to go back here and do some more. But man, being a Virginia native myself, I've been to DC as well. A beautiful place. I was out there during the 90s. Fun time, right?
Mhm.
Before we get into everything, tell people about your journey of how you got into the work that you do. Who were you before this?
Before this, I was a Jesus loving young lady who loved people, loved making a difference in the lives of other people and transforming lives, who experienced life. I mean, I knew at a very early age that by design, life wasn't going to be easy. I was going to have my triumphs, but I also was going to have my trials. And let me tell you, I have experienced all of that, but none of that was for no reason. It was part of my purpose, was part of my journey. And through this journey that I called life and all of the experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, they were all opportunities for me to grow, to know myself better, to know God better, to understand my purpose. And then as I was healed, that I could come alongside others and empathetically share my story and experiences and help them to also experience the same healing and transformation that I received.
Yeah, and that is truly amazing. I think a lot of people get wrapped up into the trials and tribulations of life in general, right?
Hmm.
It's easy to get stuck in victimhood, victim mode. And I think we've all been there once upon a time, right? And it takes us getting to a place and understanding that it didn't happen to us, it happened for us. But
Yes.
that's why we do the work that we do, to help people understand, like, hey, life never said that it was going to be this, that, and the other. Life said, hey, we're going to challenge you
Yep.
in order to build you, and we're going to see where you go from there, right? No guarantees, no promises. Life isn't fair or unfair. Life is just life in general.
Yes.
And sometimes we have to be careful to be reminded of what we ask of this,
Yes.
right? If we, I
Yes.
was telling somebody this not too long ago, I said, when you ask for peace in life, God has a strange way of removing everyone from life.
Yes.
For patience, He'll put you behind the slowest person just to see how you react, right? All
Yes.
different things. Like I find it interesting because when it does happen, I have to check myself, right? And
Mhm.
you know what? Maybe I need to do something different this time so it doesn't keep repeating itself, right?
Yes.
And you said you mentioned your trials and tribulations as you went through life. You mind sharing some of your trials and tribulations with the audience?
Absolutely. So before I reached 18 years old, I was gang raped by a group of boys. I was sexually molested by a family member and also the father of a child that I babysat for. I also grew up in a home where I experienced many adverse childhood experiences, growing up in a home with a father who was a Vietnam vet,
Mm,
who lost his entire platoon, who did not realize he was suffering from PTSD. And also, there was a family history of mental illness. And so he drank and he used drugs and he was very violent, emotionally and physically violent towards my mother and even towards my brother and I. And so that all happened before I was 18. And it didn't stop. Life didn't stop lifing. I was actually in counseling by the time I was in middle school because I suffered from depression and anxiety. And I thank God for that because that was during a time when people that looked like me and you did not seek counseling. But my mother recognized that I was in crisis and she sought me a lifeline in the form of a counselor. So I would leave school every Thursday and I would take two buses to get to my counselor's office. Now, my mother was willing to go herself, but she still sent me. And it wasn't until I continued to go until the kids at school wanted to know why was I leaving every Thursday? Why was I getting an early dismissal? And so my loving cousin shared with them that I was going to see a shrink. And
mm,
so that bullying that I had already experienced intensified. And so echoes of the word crazy was
mm,
in the hallway when I entered. So naturally, I didn't want to continue counseling. It became that safe haven became something that I didn't want to, I no longer wanted any part to it.
right.
And so by the time I went off to college, I had like my very first boyfriend who was abusive. He was physically and emotionally abusive. And that was the first time that I attempted to take my life. That was the first and only time, even though I have struggled with suicidal ideation. I have several mental health diagnoses, including PTSD, major depressive disorder, anxiety and panic disorder, and chronic insomnia.
Mm,
And because of everything that I experienced, even in the church where I was told I need to pray about it, yes, there's a time and a place for prayer, but God has also provided skills and wisdom to counselors, therapists, and other individuals that can help us along our journey and help us to heal and have the instruments to be able to do that. And because of my own struggles, I said that I'm going to be a voice for the voiceless. I'm going to speak up and speak out and fight for and advocate for mental health. I also experienced pregnancy loss. I lost a set of twins who were born prematurely, and then I had four miscarriages after that. And then just last August, I lost my loving husband and best friend who lost his battle with peripheral T cell lymphoma. And that's just to name a few of the things.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, and that, thank you that you're still here. Thankful that you're still here, right? And you were able to see throughout all of that the blessing, right?
Yes,
And find your purpose. And I think that's very inspiring, very very inspiring. Thank you for that.
you're
And
welcome.
speaking of pregnancy loss, the experience of pregnancy loss, and is very traumatic in itself. And I don't think a lot of people, I think it's starting to come to light now,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of pregnancy loss practitioners out there that's doing the job and helping women understand that, hey, you're not by yourself, and actually able to provide them the necessary help that they need, to be able to deal with those questions that come about, right?
Right.
And I want to dive into that a little bit, right? Because I can speak from a male's perspective, and most men, we will grieve pregnancy loss, and I think that's a huge misconception when it comes down to it. But you being a woman, right? What was some of the questions that if you don't mind, what was some of the questions that you had when those pregnancy losses happen? Because I know questioning your body, and things like that,
Absolutely. It definitely took a toll on my self-esteem at a certain point.
Mhm.
The initial time that it happened with the twins, I really felt like it was because the doctors didn't hear me. They weren't willing to take care of me and to provide me with the services that I paid them for. And I
Mhm.
felt like it could have been prevented.
Right.
Because when you go into a new doctor's office, they ask you for your history and what have you. And what I found is that they don't actually read it.
Mm.
Because if they had actually read it, they would have known that at one point in my life's journey, before becoming pregnant with my twins, I had precancerous cells. So they had done a procedure called a LEAP procedure where they had removed a portion of my cervix, which actually weakened my cervix. So what if they had actually read my history and I didn't know, I had no knowledge of what should happen or what shouldn't happen. They should have sent me to a specialist. My cervix should have been sewn up, or there was things that they could have done medically to protect my wound and to monitor the pregnancy more, but they didn't do any of those things. And I remember the doctor that I had, it was a practice, so they had to rotate to different doctors because you didn't know who was going to be on call.
Right.
And this one doctor that I had met during the rotation, he had a very poor bedside manner. He wasn't listening because I had shared some concerns that I was having. He just totally disregarded what I said.
Mm.
And he happened to be the person that was on call that night, that evening when I called in. And he told me I was just dehydrated, just drink some water. And I drank some water because I was actually experiencing contractions, but I didn't know.
Mm.
So I asked another lady in the office because I felt pressure, and I have two kids, two children that I had before them, but I had never carried twins. So she was saying, "Oh, that's the weight of the twins. You're good." So I worked really long hours that day, and I was like, maybe I just need to go home and rest. But when the pains intensified, I called, and that's when he said it was dehydration. And long story short, I ended up giving birth to one of the twins. They call it a shooting birth because as
Mm.
soon as the paramedics lifted me up, my son shot out into his arms. And then the contractions stopped. So I was no longer in labor, but the same doctor took it upon himself to do an emergency cesarean and to take my other son when there was no need. And so they both ended up developing cranial hemorrhaging on their brains, like level 5, which is very severe.
Wow. Wow. Um, and people always ask why I don't trust doctors. And wow, man, because when we hear stories like this, right, you do develop some sort of insecurity when it comes down to doctors because they're supposed to be the ones who take care of us when we go in and need help. And,
Right.
and here's something that people never really think about, right? When it comes down to the Black community, um, these are very, very common stories across the board. Very, very common stories. And everybody wants to say, oh, we're making it up, or this doctor, the doctors don't do that. I'm here to tell you, just like how you just shared your story right there, they do. They don't treat us like, like our counterparts, right?
Right.
Um, because I don't know what it is. I remember reading a story a long time ago from the days of slavery when slaves used to go in to get surgery and he never even used anesthesia to numb the pain because he thought
Mhm.
he never felt pain. And now we look at today's medicine. I don't think too much has changed. I
Yeah.
really don't. But that's just my thoughts, and I'm not bashing all doctors. There are some really phenomenal doctors out there. And so I want to be careful not to group those in with those doctors that don't care, that don't listen and everything. Unfortunately, it happens too frequently that we run across the wrong doctors.
Yes.
And you also said something that I want to touch on, because I think it's something that should be talked about: the mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and this is just my opinion, a lot of times, a long time ago, when mental health was never talked about, and to go see a counselor, you mentioned it, you was considered crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? It was such a taboo thing. And I think there's a sense of shame, because when people start saying those things, we do have a sense of retreating and going, well, I'm not crazy, right? And we tend to conform to society,
Right.
to our culture. My question would be, what do you think brings that upon?
Well, it comes from the whole stigma and not recognizing that it's important. Getting counseling is really, it's a responsibility so that you can be holistically healthy,
Right.
because mental health and physical health, they're synonymous. And because people they're not educated and they don't understand that. And because of the barriers, and the barriers could be in the form of the stigma, lack of access, lack of ability to find culturally competent therapists, or therapists who are trained in your particular modality, depending upon, whatever your circumstance is. But it's it's all of that, and plus not understanding that at some point in our lives, whether it's a temporary situation, like you need counseling to help you through relational issues, stress on the job,
Mhm.
whatever it is, that it is a benefit, and it doesn't mean that you're crazy. And it's not a privilege, it's a right for each and every one of us that we should be taking advantage of. But everyone doesn't have access. And even in our community and in the church, also, there's this thing like, oh, you must be possessed, or it's sin, is this and that. No, even in the Bible, there's biblical um, people stories about people that suffer from depression, King David. I mean, all different types of things. And so this is a new. It's just that what you're being told and how it's being socialized in your community, and the people that you're surrounding yourself with, and not having a full understanding of the benefits to it. And once I started to change my mindset and to look at it in a different way, then that really set me free. But even with my freedom, I still had barriers, because there was times when my health insurance didn't cover it. It was, and you have, in a lot of counselors, unfortunately, they don't take health insurance,
Mhm.
or my health insurance, I found one, but my health insurance, they didn't take my health insurance. And back in 2019, I had to drive to Hampton, Virginia, which is 3 hours from where I live, to find a counselor, because they didn't have any. Nobody had any appointments. So I'm driving 3 hours to get help. And then the pandemic came, and then it became virtual. And I had like treatment resistant depression. It had gotten so bad that they were trying like all these different meds and nothing was working. And so I just started telling my story. I started getting involved and becoming an advocate, and meeting and educating the legislators and our policymakers and elected officials, because just because they're in these positions doesn't mean they didn't really understand.
Right, right,
And
right.
so it's by telling our stories, by advocating, by giving hope and being an inspiration to others and being a voice to others, that we're really able to make a change. And one of our elected local officials, she just opened up a community crisis center, because that was another problem. There wasn't enough beds to house
Mm.
people that needed help, that was in severe crisis. And I was also involved. They had a 12 bill omnibus bill that was for Black, Indigenous people of color. It was for maternal and mental health.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad that they're actually starting to take notice what we've been trying to tell them, right? Because when I first got into the grief field, I was talking to these elected officials, congressmen, and things like that. And I remember there was one that I talked to, and he said something to me, and I went off on him like nobody's business because I work with a lot of men, right? And so I
Hmm.
see, the challenges that men go through, and that's the reason why I advocate so hard for the services for men. Um, and when I mentioned this to this congressman, this congressman said, "Well, I don't know why you're doing that. Men just find other things to do." I started laughing. I said, "Now I'm going to stop you because now you get to get a side of me that I wasn't trying to show you." I said, "You're absolutely right. Men do find other things to do. That is the reason why the suicide is so high. The addiction rate, the mental health rate, the homeless rates are so high between men
Yeah.
world today. These are the things that we find to do. We're not out here finding help because, for one, no one ever taught us that it was okay to not be okay. This is the
Right.
reason the language that men speak when we're hurting, no one understands because we don't understand.
Right.
He kind of had to back himself into that corner, and I didn't stop now. So I was like, no,
Yeah.
you don't get to retreat. You don't get to retreat. You're going to listen to what I have to say, and then we're going to go from there. And then when you see me again, I'm coming down to change some legislations. We need to get resources out here. If you don't want to keep seeing these things,
Right.
we have to do something better. And it starts with you understanding that I am not going to stop until we get the necessary help and treatment that we deserve and need. And I'm pretty sure, me saying that, and, I'm looking at you, you're like, yep.
Yeah.
What was the first steps in you going in there and letting these elected officials, saying know the urgency of
See, so they have advocacy that say once you become involved as an advocate for National Alliance of Mental Illness and Mental Health America, like so they actually teach and train their advocates, and then they have advocacy day where you actually contact your elected officials in your community
yeah,
and state and begin to share information. So they share statistics with us, data about what's going on, how we're doing. And Virginia was like doing so poorly when it
mm,
came to providing services for, um, their citizens and just going in and talking to them. So it's like all day. But even outside of that, just being involved with my local elected officials. Every year I'm invited to speak at a mental health 5K that they have. I was just there last month speaking and sharing my story and calling for more. And luckily in our county, our elected officials, they're forlorn. Like they want to make a difference and they're not just it's just not lip service.
right,
They're out there hitting the ground and they're doing things to provide better services for our citizens. And they took the money there was a block of money that was given during COVID to different states, but a lot of states didn't use it for mental health. For our
okay,
state, they did. And so I'm very proud of them. But there's more to be done. There's so
oh yeah,
much more to be done.
oh
There's
yeah,
always more to be done. But we have to thank them and say, okay, we're gonna celebrate that. Thank you. But let me tell you what else is going on.
yes,
And you have to be able to know that there's so many things that are involved in that because there's so many people in our community. The housing shortages or not being able to afford housing, not having healthy access to healthy food, like all of these things play into our holistic health and well-being. Not
mm,
having good transportation systems in certain areas so people can even be able to commute and get a decent job, all of these different things. And so that's why I make sure I stay educated and keep my ear to the ground and get out there and talk and share and hold people accountable so that people's lives can be better. And I feel like this is part of who I am and I should be proud of it.
Oh yeah.
And sharing this and giving people hope. I mean, people were coming up to me like, thank you so much for sharing your story. Like, my son is dealing with this, or I'm dealing with this, military veterans. We go out and serve like the homeless community that lives in Tent City. A lot of those individuals, it's mental illness. That's why they're there. They
Yeah.
can't afford a place. They've been kicked out because they have things, maybe they're bipolar or they're schizophrenic or things, but they haven't received the assistance that they need.
Mm-hmm.
There's you can become like a peer advisor. So there's training available. So like I can get training, and I got my training through the Association of Christian Counselors, so I can be like a coach. But they have other different things that you can do so that people can come in and talk to people that experience things like they have and receive support in a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just need to continue to do more of that, because unfortunately it's not a lot of us who are trained, and
Right.
just even educating people on how do you select a counselor, because you can get really frustrated in the process. Because I've gone through some humdingers, some really terrible people who should not even be counseling. But then
I'm glad you
also
said.
know that there's different modalities. Like, I've gone through cognitive behavioral therapy. People don't even know what that means. Like, there's different treatments that's available. But if you just get to like, you just talking, you go on talking every day and rehashing the same stuff over and over again, but they're not dealing with the mindset, the thinking, the behavior, the triggers. They're not talking about all of those things and doing a variety of different things. Then you're just going to get frustrated and say, I tried it, it don't work.
Right.
That's not for me.
Right. You said a couple things right there, and the first thing I want to touch on, is something very important: finding the right person for you, right? And I'm right there with you, especially being in the field of grief. I've run across people where I had to walk away and go, this person should not be doing this. They should not be doing this, because what's going to happen is that individuals like myself, like ourselves, have to go back in and repair the damage that they've done. And that's only because I've listened to them. I've been in the same room with them. And when you're a student of this thing, right? I'll never be an expert. I'll always forever be a student, right?
Mhm.
And I'm, because like you, I'm got to keep my ear to the ground. I always got to keep learning, so I can be better of how to show up in other people's lives,
Yeah.
especially those that need my services, and knowing when to say, you know what, I am not the best one for you. Let me
Mhm.
connect you with someone who's going to be of benefit to you, because there's no shame in that, right? Like I don't make money off any of this stuff, right? I provide my services for free, and and that's just the way that it was, because that's what I was called to do. And I have no shame in that, right? I make money in different areas, to be able to provide those services. And the second thing, I was listening to, when you started putting all of these things together, and I was just going, that ties into this, that ties into this, that ties into this. And I think people really misunderstand how these different areas intertwine with everything else that goes on with it. Unseen trauma, generational trauma, right? The addictions, the mental health, suicide ideation and things like that. And it took me back to a time when I was a kid, and watching people in my community. Especially, I watched a lot of people, because there was a time where people were dying left and right, and I used to just watch how the community reacted to those things. Right?
Mhm.
You mentioned Hampton. I remember back in the day, there was nothing. So few and far in between. I'm glad to see that it's happening now, and I'm right there with you. I would like to see more down
Yeah.
happen, um, and however we can do it to be able to implement those things, especially in Newport News, Richmond, Norfolk, and all across the board. It needs to be implemented to those communities. But
Yeah.
watching our communities, how do we get our communities to understand the importance of seeking help in order to heal without it sounding like we're calling them crazy, you know? And
Okay.
that's where the only part where I see my challenge, well, see the challenge at, right? You know,
Yeah.
to go in there and go, man, you're not crazy, right? But
Right.
being able to relate to them in those different areas.
Well, connecting with our educators, I met a gentleman who's on the school board that we're going to connect and do some stuff because our children, oh my goodness, that
Mm,
pandemic did a ring on them, and so many of them have mental health crisis, and their parents don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. The schools are already overloaded and understaffed,
mhm,
and just being able to make it like a whole family dynamic, training, teaching, even the teachers so that they can be able to recognize, make referrals. It's got to be a whole partnership, like
right.
even with the churches, like if they're not out there, they're not educating themselves and finding out what resources are available for their congregations and getting involved and having like a referral list, or like our church has counselors on staff, but they can only do so much, so that's why they need to vet the counselors that are available,
Mhm,
how services, if they have it by income or all those different things, or health, like they need to educate themselves so that when someone comes, because they come to the church, like, I need help. This is what's going on. And you can give the wrong, when I was getting my doctorate, this one class, mental health class, the, there was a woman who was going through a divorce, and she went to her pastor, and he put her in touch to the lead of a divorce care group.
mhm,
But the woman killed herself because he didn't know how to ask the right questions. So
right.
she was severely depressed and dealing with suicidal ideation, and had put together a plan. But because if you don't know how to ask the right questions, you don't have the connections in the community because you just stay within your church walls. You don't know what resources are available, whatever the need might be. Then that right there is doing a disservice. But
Mhm,
if we all come together and share our resources and talk about what's really happening, real life situations that people are dealing with, and having like different sessions on, let's talk about it. It's okay not to be okay. Having different community forums, having the 5K mental health walk where you're talking and you having different people doing things constantly, because it can't be a once a year thing. This has got to be an ongoing thing that's
yes,
going
yes.
on, and getting the resources, the funding, the beds, all of that stuff available. Because I'm going to tell you, my sister was taken. They came and the police retrieved her. They put her in a they hospitalized her. They sent her to Williamsburg, Virginia, and released her. And she was threatening my mom and my aunt, threatening to kill herself. But she took some psychology. She has a degree in psychology, so she
Mhm,
thought the good game. But the lady said she knew that she was lying, but they was going to bring her back to my mom's home without even telling her, because they said they couldn't make her stay. She's sleeping on my mom's porch right now, urinating on the concrete and doing the rest, throwing it in the backyard. She
mhm,
needs help. But we can't like put her, we can't sign papers and get her hospitalized to get the treatment, because she needs to be detoxed. There's a whole bunch of things that's gonna have to happen with that whole process, because she's an alcoholic. She probably weighs like 80 pounds. I mean, it's so sad, but all I can do is pray for her, because she says we got the problem. She don't have the problem.
right.
But
And
there's
it's
nothing
people to
available
understand
to
that.
give her the help that she needs.
Right. And here that's one of the biggest challenges is getting people to see the other side and actually admitting that they need the help. Because look, and I'm speaking from experience. I've been homeless. Um, I've been an alcoholic. I've tried to take my life. I've had to deal with some things and come to the conclusion of the reality of my life, right? And not be a victim.
Yeah.
Or get out of victim mode, right? And not blame everybody for the things that they do, but to come to accept everybody for who they are.
Yeah.
But it starts within, all right?
Right.
It starts within. It's saying that, hey, I'm pretty messed up, and then stand true to that, and then allowing yourself um, the means of surrendering to that right there.
Right.
And coming from a place where we come from a community where we're born fighters. We're born fighters. We're born into that community fighting,
Yeah.
surviving, barely
Yeah.
getting. And then, what I'm saying, because we're taught, like if you want it, you're going to have to go and get it.
Yeah.
But they don't teach us the other things. So when I say that, there was a lot that I had to do as I got older in that process of surrendering. And that was the hardest thing, right? Because I didn't know that there was nothing wrong with me. I thought that everybody went through the same things I went through. Now, here's the truth behind it. There were more people that had gone through the same things or similar things that I had gone through, but was afraid to admit it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
understanding about why you have to ask yourself in relationships as well, whether if it's an intimate one or just a friendship one, right? You know, what's wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? If it's not working out and you always find yourself people coming in and out of your lives or you doing the same thing, those are all trauma responses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, always saying, and I've had this one happen to me several times, and I've done this several times. You don't want to be with me, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm not. That's my way of saying, you know what, and we can say it any way that we want to, but the truth of the matter is, as soon as those words come out of your mouth, there's a sense of insecurity or self worth, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
lack of self
Right.
worth.
Mm-hmm.
I am not worthy of what you want to offer me,
Right.
right? And so therefore I have to resort back to my default setting, which is I have to push you away. I know this. Look, I was the king of it. I was the king of it, right? But it's a difference when you realize that the damage that you do to other people because you refuse to get the necessary help that you need.
Yeah.
And you work with NAMI, which I find that very impressive. I'm still trying to get on. I'm still trying to get with them, right? But like, hey, Tony over here, I'm trying to get with y'all. Um, but now I want to ask a question um, from this era of COVID. Although, do you think that it became a lot easier to find those resources nowadays than it was previously?
I don't think so because well, I think that there's more conversation going on. There's a more sense of awareness, there's more conversations going on. And I think that, like I said, some states did take some of the funding that they received and put some things in place for their communities, but all states did not.
Mm.
But the ones that did, I think they have, made a dent. um, and have made an impact. But the need is so great because look at all the years that it was neglected when there was nothing being done. And so you're faced with a shortage of trained professionals to provide the care. You got a shortage of hospitals that can actually, have beds available. It's like a whole big thing that's going on that it's going to take a long time and we'll still be trying to work our way through, but as long as we continue to be steadfast and to continue to make strides and to stay educated and keep our pulse on it and to hold our policymakers and legislators and elected officials accountable and to speak and to advocate. And I it just, when I hear that somebody can't get help, it just breaks my heart, because I know I've been there. And even now that I switched from the person and who was in Tidewater, who I began to, we started meeting by phone, but she was so unprofessional, Tony. She was ordering sandwiches during my hour, pumping gas. So I had to let her go, because you're not taking it serious. And I loved her because she understood that I'm also an empath, because I was thinking I was like crazy, because I'm taking on people's like emotions, I'm taking on their energy, and I couldn't separate, like, is this his or is this mine? Like, I thought I was feeling good, like, but she helped me to navigate and gave me some tools. I think I did like the vampire of the energies, something like different books that we talked about, tools. Like, she was good but unprofessional, and I don't do unprofessional.
Right.
And so I kept trying to find someone. And then I found like somebody that was a student. She wasn't ready, and she didn't know how to work with my situations. I had a psychiatrist that gave me the meds. And then I got a new primary care doctor. And that's the other thing. There needs to be a partnership between primary care doctors and it's a whole partnership. And they should be communicating, and not just someone just want to throw you on meds. Like, that doctor was thorough. She wanted to make sure I didn't have any thyroid issue. Like, she did, like, so she worked with my doctor to get like me a full physical to make sure that it was nothing else, because other things can present themselves as some type of mental health issue, but it's a physical health issue. But they still go together, because not getting enough sleep, that impacts, but my mind just races and races and races and races. But I didn't even know that was the point. And that's the thing. If people actually knew what it meant to be mentally healthy, they would stop calling people crazy.
I'm right there with you, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I remember we used to do the same things. Like, you must be crazy.
They dropped him. He must have been dropped on his head, or
you already know. Look, I think you're calling me out now, because I think you've been dropped on your head. What you talking about? Is it flat up there? Let me check and see.
Crazy as a bed bug, all the little things, but they don't know when you're saying that you're stigmatizing. You're putting that person in a position where they're not even going to acknowledge that they need help.
Right. Because
they're not even going to.
Because there's a sense of shame that comes along with that, right? The first time you call someone crazy, and trust me, I have a tendency of doing that to certain people, because they are, right? And I'm only repeating what they say to me. So you are crazy, right? And when I say it in a way like that, I do realize that, I'm saying, what it does. But I'm also the one that will come back and go, you don't have to be that way.
Yeah, because it's a choice. Healing is a choice.
It's a choice, right? You know what I'm saying? But I think when I do it, and a lot of people never catch on to when I do it, they just take it personal. And I tell them, if you take it personal, I don't care, because now there's a reality that you have to face. Because I'm very straight to the point. Hey, I'm going to say what you don't want to hear. I'm going to make you mad at me, and I'm okay with you being mad at me, because for one, you're going to have to go back and revisit why you're mad at me. Why? Yeah. I used to be that guy too, right? You call me something, what? But I had to check myself. Yeah. It wasn't until later on in life, I had to go, let me just do this journey. Let me figure out why I keep getting upset, getting angry, and wanting to punch somebody out when they say certain things to me. And I realized that's when the definition of trigger first started coming around. Like, why am I thinking about this? Yeah. Because I didn't know. I didn't know, right? But through that healing process, I want to talk to you about your healing process. But through that healing process, I realized that there was a large amount of pain because of the accountability that I had to face from those certain triggers, right? And I had to go in and I had to address those things. And I think that's what makes us very passionate about going in there, because we understand the work.
Yeah.
Understand the work. It's not one of those things that happen overnight. I heard a quote from another grief expert. I call him an expert because he is. Um, he said, problem with getting help is that by the time people actually seek help, they usually have 20, 30, sometimes 40 years of trauma
Yeah.
that to unpack. But the problem is that they only ask for help once. And when you have um, less educated or um, less certified individuals
Mm-hmm.
into it, they do not understand the steps that it would take to unpack all of that so they can heal entirety. And
Yeah.
and see the person not just for that one section, but they can see the person for the entirety of the human being, and they get
Right.
to heal the spirit, the emotional, the mental, and the physical.
Right.
And he goes, if you neglect one of these, you'll know. And I thought to myself, I was like, now that's a hell of a commitment right there. That's a
Yeah.
hell of an understanding. Now I want to talk to you about your healing journey, and then I want to talk to you about the steps when you realized that what I'm saying, you had something and wrote your book. I want to talk about that. What was your healing journey like?
So, like I said, I've been in and out of counseling since middle school, and it was at a certain point in my life when I just said, especially when I became a mom, I was like, I got to take this serious because I
Right,
don't want my trauma to be transferred onto my children.
right,
So
right,
I have to take ownership and responsibility at whatever cost and get the help that I need and have and it's great because it gives me a better understanding of who I am at the core, the
mm,
conditions that I grew up in. I mentioned the adverse childhood experiences, which I had no control over. Like the trusted adults in my life, they did the best that they could do.
right, right,
And loving them in spite of whatever transpired and the things that I was exposed to, and being committed to being a better mother myself, a better parent, and to be able to have those conversations with my children so they can be aware of their emotions and not be ashamed of their emotions, and understand that it's okay for us to share and to talk about things, creating a safe environment. Self compassion was really crucial to my healing journey. Self love, learning to love myself, to put myself first, to say no without giving you a whole reason or apologizing, but just saying no because I need no, holy no,
yeah.
and just
Love
really,
it. Say, oh, holy.
just really beginning to take stock of who I am, but understanding most importantly my identity in Christ, and really trying to and destroying all those things that had held me bound, all the things like you ain't nothing, you just like your dad, like all the different things that have been told to me, that I was nothing, that I wasn't going to be this and I wasn't going to be that, or the comparison. Really to begin to dismantle all of those lies and to put them where they belong in the pits of hell, and to really just take hold of and study, who does God say that you are? I am chosen.
Yeah,
I just begin to affirm these things over myself, and to realize that God created heavens and the earth, all of creation, everything that's here. He's created the medicines, he's equipped and gifted people with certain skills and abilities to help individuals like myself and others. And why not take advantage of that so that I can be fit for the kingdom? So when I started like working on the mindset, getting things, going through things like the cognitive behavioral therapy, dealing with the trauma, because there's been like domestic abuse, sexual assault, like just understand and no longer taking that on myself and saying that I'm responsible. I'm not responsible for decisions that adults or other people in my life decided, actions that they decided to take that harm me. I'm not responsible for that. So once I really did go through going down that path and really understanding, loving me, being compassionate with me, forgiving the people that had hurt me, that's also crucial to healing.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started to begin to do that, and then I said, you know what, Lord, you've taken me on this journey for a reason. And now it's time to share my story and to come alongside others and to help them and to disciple them and tell them about the goodness, your goodness and your love. And even when the times when I was far away from him and I thought he had left me, because that's what happened with that suicide. Like, Lord, I know better because I gave my life to you when I was 12. I know I shouldn't be doing this. And getting myself involved with an abusive, person that made me have multiple abortions, like all of that started to like dismantle my mental health, even for far worse than it had ever been. But once I got that revelation, I began to take hold of who I am, to love myself as I am, but to always seek growth and improvement and to thank the Lord and treat each day as a gift. So no matter the mistakes I made yesterday, today is a new opportunity to get right what I got wrong, to love myself better, to love others better, to lead better, and to do what I was purposed and created to do and be and have. And once I began to really like live that out and to lead myself in a different way, the healing began. It began. And even though I might take 5 steps back, God would bring me to 20 steps forward. And so just beginning just to live in the moment, love myself unconditionally, just like he does. And to be able to come alongside others, that has really been healing to my soul. Like even with the pregnancy losses, I became a certified pregnancy loss facilitator. So I started helping other people. And so that's what I do. Like once he gets me to a point, then I just reach back and bring other people along.
That's the key to it. I love that you said that. So many people I meet nowadays, and trust me, it took me a long time to find good people. It took me a really, really long time to find good people. I had to weed through some of the ones, some really bad ones, right? And had to go through the motions. And I always just stuck to it. And I said, God, if you could surround me with some good people, so I can be better at what I do. I'm not trying to look, I'm not trying to compete with nobody. I just want to be the best that I do in the field that I'm in, right?
Mhm.
Hopefully, I can get to, well, I've gotten to a point I can reach, I can grab one person. We can build this blueprint for those coming behind us to inspire them to do better than us, right?
Right.
And I think that's the key to it. We're called to take the things that we've gone through, turn it around, and use it as a way, as a beacon of hope. And you mentioned being an empath and being around other people. I thought I was going crazy, right? Because I would go around people and I'd be like, whoa, what is this, right? Like, and
Mhm.
I would have to, like, I never knew what that was. I never knew what it was, right? Because I never knew. It was so hard for me to understand the emotions that came along with it. When I felt other people's emotions, I was like, oof, why am I like, I was always asking myself, why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not with all of this, right?
Right.
Then it would reveal itself, or they would reveal themselves, and
Mhm.
automatically I knew to shut up, right? And I knew just to allow God to speak to them. I have to
Mhm.
do with it, but and
Yeah.
I know everybody's answer, what to say to them in certain things. But if I allow myself to be used, everything has a strange way of working out.
Yeah.
But that carrying other people's emotions, I realized after a while, I was like, you know what? At some point, my emotions have nothing to do with this, so I need to go ahead and disconnect that
Yeah.
And when I tell people this, like they were like, "Well, how do you do it?" And I go, "Because of the simple fact of my emotions have nothing to do with this." And they always ask, "Why is that?" I go, "Because you have two emotional people in the same room, and one is seeking what you carry.
Mm-hmm.
Deter that person by sharing your emotions with them, because for one, you invalidate what they're going through,
Mm-hmm.
and then in turn, and I lay it all out. In turn, when they feel invalidated, they feel as no one cares about what they're going through. When a
Right.
person feels that way, they do one of two things. They will either go to drugs to escape the reality because they already feel that no one cares about them,
Mm-hmm.
or two, they will convince themselves that the best way and the best alternative is to take their lives because they have no place in the world.
Yeah.
And I go, that needs to change.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, doctor. That those things need to change. Now, when did you decide to write your book? You got a copy of your book?
So, do I have a copy?
Yeah, you got a copy of your book.
I don't have it in here with
Ooh,
me.
ooh, we got to talk about this.
I'm so sorry. I'm getting my whole like house was like redone, so we moved everything out and like a new desk over here. So my books are not in here. I don't even have. So I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared. I'm usually prepared. So
No,
forgive
no,
me.
look, you know I was gonna give you a hard time.
But
I told you I was
I
gonna ask you
wrote
about
the
that. So I was like, no, that's
my
totally fine.
dog is here. Hold on one
That's
second.
totally fine. This
Okay,
is
I'm in the
life.
middle of an interview. Bye bye.
This
Yeah,
is
they've been
life.
gone. My daughter's been gone, and so they're just getting back here. But yeah, so the book, so that was written in 2018, and it was during a very, very difficult time in my marriage. I was struggling, just struggling, like probably in every area of my life. And it was really just written in a weekend just so I could just get this stuff out of me. And that God just began to reveal some things that I had even suppressed.
Mhm.
And I just began just to outpour that. And I just wrote for 3 days straight. And my friend was like, she had just published a book and she was like, you need to send what you wrote. I was like, girl, this is just my raw emotions. Like it doesn't even make any sense. It's like literally like from my early childhood up until the age I was at that time. And so when I sent it to the gentleman, he was like, this is 3 books.
Whoa.
And the rest is history. So that it was just therapeutic for me to get all that stuff out because I wasn't at that point where I had really shared a lot of the stuff that happened. I
Mhm.
didn't have a really good, a healthy relationship with my mom. Um, she was very controlling and manipulative, and I looked like my dad, and I think that was a trigger for her.
Mhm.
And she became a parent very young. I mean, she was a valedictorian of her high school, and I graduated with her because she was carrying me.
Right.
My father was a young soldier, and my mom was a part of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So she marched during the civil rights, was an advocate, and she was supposed to be going to law school, but she ended up pregnant with me. No fault of my own, but I felt the brunt of it.
Mhm.
My husband relocated her from Albany, Georgia, to Washington, D.C., and he promised her that since she wasn't going to be able to take advantage of her scholarship because she wanted to be a civil rights attorney, that he was going to pay for her to go to college. But once they got married, he relocated her from my grandparents. He was like, "Oh, women don't need to go to college." So it was this whole bait and switch thing. Like, no, you're not going to college. You just want to take care of these kids. Like, um, so I mean, I get it. You know, someone like her who was very, very intelligent, had her future ahead of her. She made choices that she needed to take responsibility for. Because, like I said, I'm not responsible for my being here.
Right.
or the fact that my dad became abusive. And so we just never, it's like they put the roof over your head, but don't give you the, the empathy, the support, and the nurturing and love that you need. But I thank God for my grandma, Medea, because
Yes.
Medea is the one, she was my first spiritual mentor. And so she's the one that taught me all about Jesus, who taught me how to pray and read the Bible, and just taught me about life, and who was, I don't have role models, I have goal models. So she was my goal model, because
Okay.
she was the first person that I saw who actually lived what she said. She lived her message. She lived a God-centered, God-focused, and God-honoring life, and she helped others. And so she was my first spiritual mentor and my goal model. And if it wasn't for her equipping me, loving me, and nurturing me, I don't know if I would even still be here.
Right.
But she planted those seeds, watered those seeds, and poured into me. And we would go and visit her every summer, her and my grandfather. And I just wrote and told about it, and told about the importance of forgiveness. So in spite of my upbringing and the things that I experienced, I still love my parents, because there's a lot of people, they can't move forward because they're still mad at their parents for something they didn't, or that they did do to them that harmed them. And they don't realize that there's freedom and forgiveness. Like, you're not forgiving them, is harming you, not them. And most of the time, they're not even aware of the things that they've done or the impact that it's had on your life, and you're holding this grudge. And so it was really, like I said, it was really therapeutic. And I just began, at that point, I began to open up and to share my story and to expose myself with wisdom. Because the books will obviously don't tell everything, but I just began to just share my story, and how, like, even at a, experiencing all the sexual assault, how that sexualized me, you know, and what was the impact of that, and what were the things that I engaged in as a result, like in just my challenges with relationships, not knowing, like I didn't even know anything about the Myers-Briggs. Like I didn't know I was an INFJ. I was just told, oh, you bougie, you funny acting. No, I'm an introvert. I don't, you're sucking the energy and the life out of me. Be gone. But I didn't know that as a child, or I didn't know that when I had roommates, and they would think that, oh, she's stuck up. No, I've been working hard all day. I've been around people all day. I just want to go in my room and listen to some music. Nothing against you personally. So when I was just sharing all these things, my challenges as a single mother, um, all of that, my challenges being in a blended family, dealing with the pregnancy losses, and that was all stuff that people, like young girls, needed to know. Like when you're in college, what happens. Parents even need to know, like, what happens when your daughter or your children go off to college. What is really going on at the college campuses, and how your daughter might end up with a controlling and abusive boyfriend. What are the signs? What's the difference between a healthy and unhealthy relationship? And all of those. So it's just opened up the door to be a ministry where I'm actually sharing these things and helping people and letting them know you're not the only one that made a bad choice. You're not the only one that grew up in the church but went off to college and lost your way. But God was still there. He didn't leave you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And to begin, and by sharing that, it not only that I say that that was also a part of my healing process and my journey and my transformation. And God just really began to use me in a phenomenal way. And it just really prepared me for everything that happened and that continues to happen. He just continues to show up and show out.
Yeah, I love that right there. Showing up and showing out, because people don't understand that. My sister's big on that, but she's like, boy, if you don't understand, God showed up and showed out. I've seen it happen firsthand. He actually showed up and showed up. I showed out in my life. I was like, y'all better stop messing with me. Y'all better stop messing with me, because I don't serve a small God. I serve a really big God, and if you mess with me, he might take it personal. So you might want to be careful.
That's right. My grandmother taught me got to pray because my
But,
dad tried to kill my mom in front of me, right?
mm,
So he's standing over her trying to stab her. And I'm just, all I could do, I was paralyzed, but I knew how to call on the name of the Lord. And
mm,
somehow my mom got the strength to roll him off of her. And we got out of there. Because that's all I knew how to do. It's like I couldn't scream, I couldn't move, but I knew how to pray.
yeah, yeah. Powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. Your podcast. When did you start podcasting?
So I started it on would have been my husband's birthday. That was he passed away last August, so it was this February. So that was when I had launched the inaugural episode in honor of him.
Okay. And where can people find your podcast?
Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Apple.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go check that out. And you guys go check it out as well. Now, before I let you go, if you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
I would say to you what you said, like what happens to us, it really is for us. It's about shifting your mindset and being able to see the gift in every situation, the good and the bad. And it hurts. It's not easy, but nothing about this life was designed to be easy. And knowing that, loving yourself, giving yourself compassion will allow you to be all that you were created and purposed to be and to do the things that you were created and purposed to do and to have. Not selling yourself short, but knowing that you are worthy and God has created you for a purpose. So live it.
I love that. I love that. And where can people find you?
You can, I don't do social media because it causes me anxiety, but I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, ShaNita Nolan, God's Grace '06 on Instagram. Also, I have a website. I'm the CEO of Circle Trust Leadership. You can find me at circletrustleadership.com or ShaNitaNolan.com.
All right. I think you gave me all that information. So that information is down in the description. If you guys want to reach out to her, let her know that you found me on that you found her on the podcast, and that way she has a direction where you've seen her. Other than that, ShaNita, thank you so much for being on the show today. Such a beautiful conversation. We have to do this again. But one last question. If people needed to find necessary resources, do you know of any sites that people can go to, like a directory or anything like that, that they
I
can?
would say the National Alliance of Mental Illness and Mental Health America, they even have like an assessment that you can take just to assess your own mental health. And they have lots of resources and information. And the other one is SAMBA. I can't remember what that acronym stands for. It's like suicide, something or another, but there's lots.
SMHI?
Yeah, I believe that's it.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact acronym, but there's lots of resources, and it's just very important to understand the signs and the symptoms because early and preventative care really makes a difference in your ability to flourish and survive and to be able to live a holistically healthy life. So, yeah.
I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. I'm always trying to find resources for people that that they can reach out to, maybe some virtual groups or things like that. But I'm right there with you. I want to see more who are compassionate to be in these certain fields, find the resources you can get certified and get the necessary education to go out there to be effective in other people's lives, to be able to serve to the best of their ability, and to be able to grow and be better. Because we do need some great, amazing certified individuals that are passionate and willing to go out there and walk with people in their darkest moments. And again, it's a pleasure to even sit down and talk with you and listen and have you share your story. Such an amazing person. You guys are going to see a lot more of her as well. We have to do this again. Whenever you're ready to, you just let me know when you have an opening in your busy schedule. I would love to come out and see you at one of your speaking engagements, and be able to shake your hand, like, hey, how you doing? And all of those different things. And for everyone who has been tuning in, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, thank you guys for tuning in. And if it's your first time, and if you made it all the way through, do me a favor, head over to their YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. And as always, if you know anyone who can benefit from the conversations that we have, please share this along with them. Go over and check out Dr. ShaNita's podcast, to go to her website, check her out. Help us get all of this stuff out there to more people to help us serve and do better in their lives as well. ShaNita, again, thank you for being on the show. For everyone, this is going to conclude this episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. We're going to see you guys in tomorrow's for another daily live stream. You know how we're doing it. We bring one every day for you guys. And, hopefully you guys be able to tune in tomorrow as well. You guys have a great day. And make sure that you guys are creating great memories with people that you love and care about. It's going to conclude it. Peace.